y'all. Thank y'all for joining us again. We're back for another episode of Hope Lives podcast.
Yes.
And we are diving in, and we've been reading this book. Like we said, been talking about Timothy Keller and his wife, Kathy Keller, The Meaning of Marriage. It's been bringing up some great stuff. I
Yes,
think one of
amazing.
the book is really, really good. And so we take a couple nights out of the week and read it together. And so I think the good thing that I want to share with you all is that it would be one thing for us to get on here and give you all the, tips and tricks we think help with marriage, and but it also, I think, is even more important that we're able to do that as well as share things that we're doing currently in
Yeah.
our own marriage that is helping us.
Yeah, we're not perfect.
No, not by any stretch of the means.
But
And so,
I think we've learned a lot,
yes,
and we know the importance of what for rich or for poor, for in sickness and in health, to
come on.
death do us part. That is
Absolutely.
something that we don't take lightly. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. And so to that point, this book has been really helping us as we
Mhm.
kind of take some time and read it, walk through it, share our thoughts. And so a couple of things we're going to talk about tonight is folks like perception and foundation of marriage.
Yeah.
Like, why are you getting married? When you get married, what was your perception and thought process going into what marriage would be?
Mm-hmm.
And so far too often we're seeing folks will get into marriage and they like the party, right? They like the celebration. They
Right.
enjoy
They're
the
hype
wedding.
about it.
Yeah.
Getting married.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. And so far too often we're seeing that, like,
Mhm.
hashtag, they'll have your name and some cool little name, cool little thing to go behind it, right?
And we're not knocking that though, right? Like leading up to the wedding.
I personally don't care too much about it if you
I
keep
mean, but
keep
I
it a
get it,
bug.
right? As a woman, I get it.
I know
There's
y'all care all about
excitement
that
there,
stuff.
right? Leading up to the wedding, you got different things going on. The cake testing, the getting the saying yes to the dress. So there's a lot of beautiful things in there. So we're not saying that's a bad thing. We're just understanding there's more to it, babe. We
I'm just
can't
saying it
knock
don't
them
matter at the
now.
end of the day.
From
Keep it a
his
stack
point of view,
with
it
you.
doesn't matter.
And
But
I
I
think
understand
most men feel that way though. I think most men feel that way. I think,
men, women, there's different.
and that's why we're having this discussion, right? We men, I think that stuff is cool. Like, we like, all right, whatever. At the real reality at the end of the day, what about these bills though? What about how we gonna take care of
You're
this
thinking about life
family?
after the wedding.
Yep,
We're thinking
absolutely.
about life
Like,
before the wedding.
yeah, and the celebration of, and I think, I'm not saying women don't think about the marriage after,
Yeah.
that after that. I think for sure that's the whole reason you guys get married, right? That's the whole
Yeah,
reason you
correct.
say yes, because you know that guy is going to be able to, take care of you, provide security financially and emotionally.
Right.
And so yeah, let's dive into it. I think one of the questions we want to kind of address is what is your perception of marriage? And so
And can I give some
yeah,
background with it? Well, I
absolutely.
think the biggest thing me and my husband have been noticing,
Take
which
over.
is not
Yep.
like anything that's new, right? You see a lot of rises in divorce, right?
Yep.
I've experienced hearing a lot of different people say they get married, then turn around. A lot of people are saying they get divorced. So, what me and my husband have been thinking about, and through this book have been understanding more, is that there's a world view of marriage and there's God's view of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And more often than not, a lot of people are getting married through the world's view of marriage, and they're because they're trying to do marriage through the world's eyes and not through God's eyes, it's not ending very well.
Absolutely.
So you see a lot of rises in divorce, right? Hearing about divorce being on the rise is not something that's taboo. We hear about it too much, to be honest.
Yep.
But I think that's really where the question, like we're going to talk about tonight, come from. Is like, what is your perception of marriage? Are you viewing it from the world's view? Or are you viewing it from God's? Because you're going to find God's view of marriage is very different from the world's view of marriage. Very
Facts.
different. It's like a 180, not a 360, right? It's the same, but it's a 180 as far as the differences. But I just kind of wanted to open up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right. Like, God created marriage, not man.
Yeah.
And so the real reality is that we are taking his concept and walking in that and inviting ourselves into it and saying this is what we want to practice. I think far too often, though, we say we want to practice this, but we don't really realize what all goes into it, like what
Yeah.
God actually intended for marriage to be and what it
Yeah.
looked like. And so that being said, I want to read something from the book where page 42, 43, and it says, In Ephesians 5, Paul shows us that even on earth, Jesus did not use his power to oppress us, but sacrificed everything to bring us into union with him.
Mm-hmm.
And this takes us beyond the philosophical to the personal and the practical. If God had the gospel of Jesus' salvation in mind when he established marriage, then marriage only works to the degree that approximates the pattern of God's self-giving love in Christ. What Paul is saying not only answers the objection that marriage is oppressive and restrictive, but it also addresses the sense that the demands of marriage are overwhelming. So we're gonna break that down, right? That's a lot to kind of gather, but and then I'll before it says overwhelming, there is so much to do that we don't know where to start. Start here, Paul says, do for your spouse what God did for you in Jesus, and the rest will follow.
Yeah.
And so, and then it says, this is the secret that the gospel of Jesus and marriage explain one another. When God invented marriage, he already had the saving work of Jesus in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot that he's unpacking there. But the real root of it is saying that when God created marriage, he already had the saving work of Jesus in mind. And so we understand that marriage started with Adam and Eve, right,
Mm-hmm.
in the garden. And so marriage at its core is sacrificial.
Yeah.
There ain't no two ways about it, cuz. Like, we can dance around it, we can make it look cool on the gram, we can, throw out all these nice little, conversations, but at the end of the day, the core of it is sacrificial. It is saying, and I heard an older gentleman say it like this one day. It says, how can I serve you? And it's our goal in marriage to outserve one another.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to find ways to serve her better. She's trying to find ways to serve me better. And so that's the reason why you hear a lot of people talk about love languages. That helps people kind of conceptualize and understand what it looks like to love one another in a way that speaks to them. What's your thoughts?
No, I completely agree. I think, like you said, what the book is showing us is really, like you said, it's the sacrificial, self-giving love. And when we read it, even in Ephesians, we talk about in Ephesians 5, verse 22, when God starts laying out literally the foundation of marriage, and he talks about how husbands should lead their families and love their wives, and even how wives. Let's start with this. So it first started off by saying, Ephesians chapter 5, verse 22. It says, wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. So even right there, right? Because we've talked about this before, how when you're in a marriage, understanding, yes, women, there is a submission. And I feel like even that word is scary to some women that are very strong and independent. And I feel you, I get you. I'm a strong and independent woman myself, but I understand that Andrew is the head, and there is a distinction that has to be made there. And he always says it. He says, how the old saying is, when you want to tell how well a marriage is going, you look at the wife. If the wife is smiling and happy, the marriage is going good. Yep. But the moment the wife is looking mad, sad, or depressed, you still look at the man. And a lot of people do that because they're going back to God's foundation of marriage, which is that the man is the head. Right. So I know my husband want to dig into this a little bit because I know we've had conversations.
I'm trying to hold it.
And we've seen things, but I think we should start from there, right? Because I know, like I said, so from a woman's standpoint, we have to understand and acknowledge that when we're coming into marriage, the Bible even says that we're a help meet. We're helping him. We're not dictating him. We're not ruling over him. We are helping him. And when we understand our place in helping, there's a lot we can do when you help.
Absolutely.
It's a lot we can do as women when we help our men. We can literally help set the foundation for what you're doing, help set the vision, help nurture and grow him as a man.
Provide clarity.
Ask questions, which we do great, right? We ask too many questions. But understanding is from a standpoint of, and I get it, right? Women will say, well, it's hard to submit to a man when you feel like he's not being the head.
All right.
So I'm going to let my husband dive into this because I get it. I get where you're going.
Yes. So here's the thing. All those things she said puts, it doesn't matter how she said it, but the real reality, the root of it is that it puts all the responsibility back on the man.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, in order for her to be submissive, she has to have someone that she is willing to be submitted to,
right?
Because he is being submitted to God.
Boom.
That's it.
That's very
Like
good.
if my wife sees me praying, she sees me being committed to the word.
Mm-hmm.
She sees me actually seeking clarity
Mm-hmm.
from my council of brothers that are among
Mm-hmm.
me,
Mm-hmm.
my other council of leaders who are among me. I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
hey, help me out with this. Hey, let me ask you this question. Hey, what should I be doing with my finances? Those kinds of things.
Yep.
She's like, bet. I see that you're actually asking. I see that you're actually being committed to what being a leader looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I actually see that you're seeking counsel. And so that I'm willing to be submitted to. No one wants to be submitted to a boastful, proudful leader at the end of the day. No one wants to, feel like their thoughts and ideas and opinions are always being squelched
Right.
just because of what you got between your legs and what the
Right.
word said at the end of the day. And so I don't care how good of a Bible believer you are at the end of the day, like you want to know that your opinions matter.
Yeah.
You want to feel included. And I've told many of guys this in counseling at the end of the day. Women look for two things, bro. It's emotional security and financial security. If you can lock them two things down, then you can figure out all the other things. Like at the end of the day, if you can make sure she's emotionally secure and you can make sure she's financially secure, then all those other things, can kind of be worked on or fixed. Now, here's the other thing. I do want to speak to this at the end of the day, because far too often I'm seeing in this day and age and culture where I don't know if it's just our generation, 80s babies and younger, but I'm seeing far too many younger people as well as our generation who's always finding a way to do two things. First thing, the women are saying, oh, my husband needs to be making 200,000 and above in order for us to get married. Bro, if that's the standard, those things, you don't need to be married. You need to
That's
bag it
real.
up.
That is so true.
You
For
need to,
richer or poorer, right?
bro, you need to bag it up. If that joker start out making 200K and he no longer has those skill sets anymore, or he gets
Yeah.
fired, what are you
Or
gonna do?
something happens, an accident
Like, are
happens.
you
Yeah.
loving him and are you quantifying your commitment based on how much he makes? Bro, that's shallow. I don't care who you are. I know that sounds really tough, but that's shallow. Just being honest with you. Like at the end of the day, I think there needs to be far more standards set in place based on other than just what he makes.
And
Because
that won't hold a marriage though, because
no,
even if we flip it, right, we've seen marriages where they're making plenty of money. Money is never an issue from a financial standpoint, but like you said, from that emotional standpoint, they
yep,
miss that. So because of that, it's like you're living a life where on the outside it looks great to people, but at the inside you're struggling, and then all of a sudden you hear about somebody getting divorced and people are like, oh my goodness, I had no idea.
right.
Well, the foundation was shaky. So
Yep.
that goes to show you, like you said, money won't hold a marriage together.
Nope.
That's that.
It
Let's
helps.
note that it'll
It
help, but
helps.
it will not hold a
Shoot,
marriage
it'll keep you out a whole lot of
together.
arguments. But
Some arguments, but it'll still open up some other ones.
But if you don't, here's the thing: you can make $1 million a year, but if you don't know how to communicate well, it's gonna be
right
problems. Because even the best people who make millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars learn to plan and communicate well and articulate what needs to happen so they can set a budget in place so they can follow a plan.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing. So I'm noticing that on the women's side of things, that there's been this overwhelming standard of like, gotta make this amount of money. Like money has been the number one priority. And I'm learning that has stopped a lot of women from being involved in certain relationships because of how much he makes. And so yeah, I'm just saying that has caused a lot of problems, and I think there needs to be a broader perspective on what he needs to be bringing to the table other than just his finances at the end of the day. Yes, he's supposed to provide, and he needs to be able to provide prior to even getting in this relationship with you. That needs to be handled at the end of the day. Now, on the men's side of things, I'm noticing that men are coming to the table saying, oh, what's she bringing to the table? How much she going to be able to help out? What's she going to be able to do? I'm going to be honest, y'all. That's an American way of living.
That's the world's view. Here we go.
That's an American way.
They don't say that nowhere in the Bible.
Now replace. And that's an American view. That has been a perception that has been forced out there. Because it's got to be this idea of 50-50 kind of a thing. But there's a lot more I could say about that. I think the 50-50 idea has come about because a lot more women have been asking for a lot more ownership and a lot more stake in other things in society. And so now it's been this thing of, oh, I want stake and ownership in everything. And so now it's been, well, bet you want that? Let's do 50-50 right here then. You know what I mean? And so that could be it. That's another rabbit hole we can go down, but I'm not going to go down. My thing when it comes to men and responsibilities is that at the end of the day, we get on one knee and ask her and invite her into something that has been already been established. If there's nothing established, then you don't need to be inviting nobody into nothing. That's it. Period. Like, it is an American philosophy to go to a woman and say, hey, I am inviting you into marriage and I want you to bring 50% of everything to this table.
Yeah.
In no other country, to my knowledge, on this God's green earth, are they bringing a philosophy of, hey, women are supposed to be bringing X, Y dollars and she's supposed to be doing X, Y amount of things in order to jump into this marriage? Nah, bro. That just ain't it. Philosophically, biblically, as a man, when we get married, honestly, we're looking at heart. We're looking at character. We're looking at mothering skills. I've heard a lot of older gentlemen say, even our older gentlemen, me and my fellas, at the end of the day, you marrying the mind, not just the looks. Because at the end of the day, the mind is what's going to raise them children. The mind is what's going to talk to your family. And
the mind is what's going to provide the emotional security.
Boom.
Right. And if you got to be able to talk to each other.
And if that person is willy-nilly up here, it's going to show in all other facets in how you guys operate in a home. And so just be cognizant of those things. As I said before, I think that far too often we are subverting God's standard and his concept of what marriage looks like and infiltrating it with world standards and views and ideas.
Right.
And this is where we are falling out of line. And we're wondering why things aren't working.
Yeah. And I think to kind of go through that is even on the next page at page 28, if you want to get ready to go there. Because once again, the world's view of marriage versus God's view of marriage is so different. So even in this book, there's a page we were reading where it really talked about how God viewed it. So Papa, I don't know if you want to read that back.
Yeah, absolutely. It says both men and women today see marriage not as a way of creating character and community, but as a way to reach personal life goals.
There we go.
They are all looking for marriage partner who will fulfill their emotional, sexual, and spiritual desires, and that creates an extreme idealism that in turn leads to deep pessimism that you will ever find the right person to marry. And so that's essentially kind of piggybacking what we were saying earlier. At the end of the day is that, once again, I've seen it far too often in the counseling room as well as on the gram. Folks are calling marriage a business contract. Like, it's more of like, hey man, you do this, I'm gonna do this, and we're gonna be Gucci together. And that's just not that hasn't been working. Far too often it's been a contractual agreement between two people to come together in a business versus coming together in a marriage. And when businesses don't do well, and they, like, let's say two businesses merge together, they bring their finance and assets together, and let's just say it does not do well, 9 times out of 10 the fallout is ugly. It is not good because now it's a fighting over assets. It's a fighting over money. People have to get fired and it's a trickle down effect, and it's not good. And in marriage, when that happens, it is a trickle down effect. Family members get hurt. Kids get hurt.
Generations.
Generational scars are now established. And so it could just be very, very, very traumatic for a lot of people when it's approached that way, versus approaching it with a sacrificial love, a sacrificial mindset, in essence. And I think what ends up happening is that when you approach it with a sacrificial mindset, then it's a thing of, if I see Tiffany doing a lot, trying to take care of the kids, trying to work and do those things, at the end of the day, I'm immediately like, hey, babe, what can I do to make sure you get some time? How can I take care of you? What is it that you need so you can get some peace of mind? Those things, just the thought that you care and show that you care means a lot to your partner at the end of the day. What's your thoughts on that? I know that means a lot to women. It means a lot to you.
Like you said, it's self-giving. So even like when they were talking about how marriage is viewed the way God views the church is the same way marriage, how we should view marriage. So God is viewing the church just as the husband views the wife. So in this Senate or in this scenario, the husband will be looked at like God and the church will be looked at as the wife. And I'm saying it to say the whole goal of it, even when you look at God, he gave his only begotten son. Like, I'm not trying to get deep, but I'm just being real from God's perspective. He
Keeping
gave his
it
only
facts.
begotten
Yep.
son for us, knowing that we would mess up, knowing that we would jack up time and time again, but still being
Absolutely.
willing to catch us when we fall, to be there to comfort us, to love on us, even when we really don't feel like we deserve to be loved on. So in that same understanding, and that's the thing, I'm be honest and transparent. I had to learn that, right? Like from a marriage standpoint,
We all do.
I
Yep.
understand when the verse says something, and I don't want to misquote it, but it's talk about don't let the sun go down on your wrath or
Yep,
something like
that's it.
that. Like there, when we first got married, and we would get in arguments, Tiffany, and he knows it, I would just shut down. I would just say, in my mind, I would be like, I ain't gonna talk to him for about 2 or 3 days. See how you like that, but not realizing that that's not the way God viewed it. God said, learn how to love the same way he loved the church. Even when the church jacked up, he was still there.
Yep.
It's one of the things, and it takes so much maturity to be able to have a disagreement or have an argument with my husband, but still understand that I love him. Like the arguments we have don't dictate whether I love him or not. And I think, once again, the world's view is my way or no way, or my way or the highway. And if you get in an argument, and because you can't seem to find a ground to agree upon, you think, okay, we got to part ways, or I don't love him anymore, I don't like her anymore, and this, that, and the other. And that's not what it is. Like, you're going to have ups and downs, you're going to have disagreements. But at the end of the day, we've learned, like, even sometimes, I think sometimes, like, when I'm mad at him or he's mad at me, we learn how to maybe just kind of try and snuggle with each other, just kind of test the air to see what's going on, and slowly kind of come back into where we're, loving and cuddling on each other, because we understand it's an argument. It is not the end of our marriage. We got to find common ground, but it only comes with understanding. Even though I don't agree with you right now, even though you've made me mad, I still love you,
so
and
good,
I'm still going to care for you. But that takes maturity.
Yes, it
and
does.
It takes humility.
Absolutely.
Because that means somebody has to humble themselves.
Come on.
Sometimes when you're both trying to be independent, I got this, he gonna be in or she gonna be in. It's a sad environment when nobody being. So now y'all sitting here going days of frustration, days of things just piling up on top of each other, without saying, hey, even in the midst of us not agreeing, I still love you. Like, just the word I love you can automatically kind of calm. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's a view.
No, you're right. You're right. In Proverbs, the Bible teaches us that a soft answer turns away an angry wrath.
It does.
And so that there's no explanation. It is what it is. It tells us that, soft answer turns away angry wrath. And so when you do the opposite, it eventually will take the person who's angry off the defensive. Maybe not immediately. Maybe not immediately. Yeah, but eventually. And so recognizing that, when you get angry, trying to find a way to create a safe space to invite the person back into the room to have the conversation. And that may not happen immediately. It may happen over time, and so those things take time to kind of get into. And so what my wife is speaking to, for her, and us being in those arguments, it was hard for her to be angry and then come to the table, where I was on the total opposite end of the ball game. I'm clearly a talker. Like, I'm going to be like, all right, we getting down to it. What's the problem? Let's fix it. Let's get into it. Let's have this discussion. Like, I'm all for the smoke. But she's like, no, I don't want to have this right now. And I'm like, no, you know what I mean? And so, but eventually, as time went on, we grew together. I understood that it took time for her to be able to come back to the table. It was my responsibility to create a safe space for her. So when she got to the table, she felt okay communicating whatever it was.
And I'll be honest, I got tired of us being mad at each other. I got tired of being mad at Andy. Like, it depressed me. My days would, how it would be. Our days would be off, work days, feeling days. I just noticed that if I didn't acknowledge my husband and put him first, if I was having an issue with him, it literally knocked off my day. It knocked off my feelings. So I got to the point, like I said, as I grew and had that maturity, I understood I love my husband, and I don't want this to be something that's going to mess up my day. And not just that, our children. That's a whole nother video. That'll be a whole nother video about how marriage affects children, because it really does. They soak in everything. But just saying, like, the environment, like, your kids can even sense when
Yep.
daddy and mommy is mad, and it just
Facts.
when I tell you, it just turns off the whole house, just being honest. And I got to the point I was tired of that. I was like, I don't want this. Like, my marriage matters more, my family matters more, my mental mind matters more than an argument. So it's
Hmm.
one of those things too. You got to get to the point. That's why I said you got to be humble. You have to be humble to bow down and say, I'm not going to let this, defeat me. I'm not going to sit here
Yep.
and say, I'm going to keep folding my arms until he gives in. Because what if he don't give in? Like, what if
Hmm.
God is saying, well, what if I need you to be the one to sacrifice?
Yep. And so here's the thing. Me and my fellows talk all the time. And one of my good friends, my best friend, he always says that the root of pride is fear. And
Mm.
so he's gonna be on here one day. Trust.
Yeah.
We're gonna have some interviews coming up these next
Yes.
episodes.
2024.
Yes,
Mhm.
sir. And so yeah, he says the root of pride is fear, and the real reality is that when someone has a pride, like a defense or an anger about them about something, like they're very passionate about a particular thing, and it seems like it's pride in them. It's
Mhm.
really they're fearful of something. Like they may be
Mm.
fearful of
That's good.
being taken advantage of,
Yeah.
fearful of um, not being heard,
Mm-hmm.
fearful of not being respected.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to ask yourself in those moments, because it's important that we give you information, but I also want to give you some practical tools, right?
Right.
In those moments, I think it's important that we ask ourselves a few questions like, what did they say that actually made me mad?
Yeah.
That's the first thing,
The
right?
root cause. I
Yeah.
got you.
What
Yeah.
what did they say that actually made me mad? What is it that I'm really trying to communicate to them that I don't think that they're grasping? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is it that I'm communicating that I don't think that they're understanding? Right. And then the other piece is that I want to understand where they're coming from. Whatever they said, can I repeat back to them what they said? And am I understanding where they're really coming
Am I
from?
trying to understand? Yeah.
Yeah. Can I
That part.
empathize with them? Right. Because empathy and sympathy is two different things.
It is.
Sympathy is like, man, I'm so sorry for you. I understand. It's kind of like when someone loses a parent, like, I'm so sorry that happened. If you didn't lose a parent, then you don't know. You're just sad that it happened. Empathy is if they lost a parent and you lost a parent, you can actually empathize and
You're
feel
walking
with
in their
that
shoes. Yeah.
just because you can relate to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so empathy is different. And so I'm saying empathizing means more in certain situations, especially in an argument with your spouse. And so ask yourself, like, how do those questions? But in addition to that, how did we get here?
Yeah.
How do we get here? Is this something that has been going on for quite some time? If so, let's dive into that. And then more often than not, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Relationships, we as people are like onions, as layers. We gotta peel them back, and it
Yeah.
takes time. It takes time, and when you get to the real core of it, you find out that it's something that honestly you didn't even know anything about.
It could be an insecurity that once again you may have had prior to even getting married.
Hmm.
Something you struggled with, but that's why we say we love counseling,
Yep.
premarital counseling, because it really helps bring some stuff to the surface. So if you get married and you have no counseling, God bless you. Okay, we are praying for you
Listen, this is
because it can bring
necessary.
so yes, pre-counseling brings so much things up to the surface to kind of help for the road, the journey down when you run into stuff,
Hmm.
because you can remember, okay, I remember that we did talk about this. But I was saying it to say sometimes there are things in your, like you said, trauma. All of us have been through trauma, and I
Yep.
know our time is winding up. So I'll just say, with the trauma is recognizing just because you get married, your trauma does not stop. Your trauma
Yeah.
is not like you can kind of just shut that door, and now you're in a new journey.
Right.
You are in a new journey, but you still have to address what's been behind you. And if
Yep.
you don't address it, it's going to overflow into your marriage, and it's going to overflow into your kids. But
Bingo.
we'll get down the road. So
That's it. And so, as we mentioned earlier, we're gonna wrap up. As we mentioned
yes, we are
earlier, we
trying to stay on time.
yes.
Not hold y'all too long, huh?
Come on. So yeah, we're gonna have interviews coming in
Yeah, yeah.
2024. This has been a great opportunity for us to be able to share our thoughts, ideas, things that we've been through. But as well as we want to hear you guys' feedback, right? We want
Yes.
to have some interviews with some folks and have them share their experiences,
Mm-hmm.
but as well as hear some information from you guys on our stories, our YouTube. So when you get a chance, like and subscribe, share, and we look forward to seeing you guys the next time.
Peace.
Peace.